welcome you and call this meeting to order of the Johnson City Commission for Thursday, May the 6th at 6 p.m. And we'll start with the reading of the roll of commissioners.
Commissioner Brock,
Here.
Commissioner Hunter,
Here.
Commissioner Murphy,
Here.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Here.
Mayor Wise.
Here. And we are joined by Pastor Randy Hensley with the Coalition for Kids to bring our invocation. If you'll please stand and we'll follow with the pledge.
After we take out Dr. Fowler.
Stay. In Jesus' name, hold the platform up. Father, we are grateful for the opportunity to be a part of leadership, to be a part of change, and to be a part of the world that needs leaders. I pray for this group that stands before me and before you. I pray you give them wisdom, and I pray you give them direction and clarity. God, I pray for everybody that hears the prayer, that we find ourselves able to focus on what's important and to realize that those things that are small and the argument that goes on with them needs to be dropped. And we need to realize that it's all in your hands anyway. So lead us. We pray you lead us. Thank you for the way that you've given to us, the way you've blessed us, and especially this community, the way you've blessed it. Help us to keep our eyes on you and going forward, honoring our brothers and sisters as we walk forward together. In Jesus' name, amen.
Face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First item on our agenda is the consider approval of the minutes for the regularly scheduled meeting held on April 15th. Are there any modifications? Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Without objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes. Mr. Peterson?
At this time, Commissioners, I would like for you to consider approval of a resolution and supplemental resolutions to amend the Johnson City Series VII-I-1 bonds. And Wendy, do we have Mr. Ayers with us? Okay, well, I've asked our financial advisor, Joe Ayers, to join us via Zoom this evening to explain the matter to you. And since he isn't a voting member of the body, he can join the meeting by electronic means. Mr. Ayers, are you there?
Yes. Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Joe, if you would the commission has the resolution and the supporting documentation as prepared by you and Bassberry Sims. If you'd just like to kind of give the commission an overview of where we are and how we got here and the need to refinance this variable rate debt, please, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Pete. Good evening, everybody. Joe Ayers with Cumberland Securities. The resolution you have before you this evening involves the Series VII-I bonds that the city first entered into back in 2010. This was during right after the financial crisis, now referred to as the Great Recession back in 2009 and 2010. At that time, Congress raised what's called the bank qualified cap from its historical $10 million level to $30 million. Bank qualified bonds allow issuers such as the city of Johnson City to get a lower interest rate from financial institutions than if you have non-bank qualified bonds. So we were able to issue slightly less than $30 million of bonds in 2010. Those were purchased by Bank of America. They had a 5-year term on them, and they first came up for renewal in 2015. In 2015, because the bank qualified cap had gone back down to $10 million, working with the city and bond council, we came up with a structure where we split the Series VII-I bonds into 3 sub-series, each less than $10 million. And we're able to roll those in 15-day increments, which under the tax laws, as long as you don't issue bonds within a 15-day period of each other, they are considered separate issues for tax purposes. So at the time, we were able to not only lower the interest rate spread on the bonds to save the city money, but we were also able to negotiate an extension with Bank of America to June 1 of 2021, which, as everybody knows, is about 20 days from now. This time, we've been able to go back and negotiate an extension with Bank of America for an additional 5 years to June 1st of 2026. And we've been able to negotiate a change in the indices that your interest rate will be paid off of. To date, it's been an index called LIBOR, which is the London International Bank Offer Rate, which is a worldwide indices. That rate is being phased out by all the banks throughout the country. And so the new indices we're going to is what's called SIFMA, which is the Security, Industry, and Financial Markets Indices. And it's a indices that tracks high quality tax exempt variable rate debt, such as Johnson City issues. So that'll more closely match your other cost of dollars. So essentially what this resolution does is approves a supplemental indenture to extend the stated expiration date till June 1, 2026, change the indices from LIBOR to SIFMA, and to lower the credit spread down to 55 basis points, which is used to calculate your interest cost on what is now about $25 million of bonds left outstanding of the original $29.5 million that were issued, because you paid down about $4.5 million of those bonds. The change in the index from LIBOR to SIFMA will not result in a new reissuance for tax purposes. So we will not have to separate these closings by 15 days. We can do them all at once right now because we're within the allowable exception of what's called the 25 basis point rule. And I know I've said a whole lot, so I'll be happy to answer any questions or provide any clarification.
Joe, these will remain bank qualified?
That is correct.
And just for the purpose of for the benefit of the commission, could you explain the benefit of debt being bank qualified?
Typically, it's worth about 25 basis points or 0.25%, depending upon what kind of market we're in and the length of the debt. And the reason it's eligible to do that is because banks and other financial institutions, if they buy bank qualified debt, they are able to deduct the carrying costs that they pay their depositors, that they use that money to buy tax-free bonds. So if you have a $100,000 CD at a certain bank and that bank uses your $100,000 to go buy a bank qualified bond, they're not only getting the tax exempt interest on the City of Johnson City's bond, but they're able to deduct the cost that they're paying their depositor on that bank CD. If they went and bought that same bond from a state of Tennessee in a $100 million issue, well above the $10 million limit, then while the state of Tennessee's bonds would be tax-free interest, they could not deduct that interest that they were paying their depositor on the bank CD.
Thank you, sir.
Are there questions for Mr. Ayers from the commission?
Are there any cost to us doing this? I know we have to do it because the LIBOR is going away, but are there financial costs to make this change?
There is some cost I shared with the city manager and Ms. Jennings, and I don't have that right in front of me, but if I remember correctly, the cost, it'll be considered a part of the interest component in this year's budget, And the savings by doing this transaction, the cost will be recouped in about 8 months. So before you get out of next year's budget, you're getting ready to finish up this existing budget.
Any other questions for Mr. Ayers or desire to take action? I would move for approval.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? If not, if there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Henner?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate you, and good to see you.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
If everyone would take a moment to bring their microphone more closely aligned to their mouths. Thank you.
Welcome.
Mayor, your next order of business is the presentation of a proclamation recognizing May as Foster Care Awareness Month. We got some folks present to receive. Come forward, please.
Come on, Ed. I, for one, am pleased to be fully vaccinated and encourage anyone who isn't to pursue that, but we'll wear the mask for just a little while longer. I'm going to read the proclamation. Whereas there are times when, in order to ensure their safety and well-being, a child must be removed from their family environment due to neglect, abuse, or abandonment. And whereas until a child can be reunited with their family or adopted into a more permanent home, foster families can provide safe, secure, and supportive homes that allow youth to develop a sense of belonging and establish meaningful relationships with caring adults. And whereas there are over 423,000 children and youth in foster care, according to the United States Children's Bureau and Office of the Administration for Children and Families. In 1988, President Reagan issued the first presidential proclamation to establish May as National Foster Care Month and raise awareness for this crisis and recognize the organizations and structures working on behalf of the nation's children and youth. And Youth Villages is a national leader in children's mental and behavioral health, bringing hope and help to tens of thousands of children, families, and young people across the United States. Whereas on any given day, Youth Villages specialists are working to help nearly 2,300 children and youth in Tennessee with a continuum of evidence and research-based programs, including residential treatment, foster care, adoption, crisis service, intensive in-home services, and programs to give former foster youth a good start on a successful adulthood. Now here's the part you've been waiting for. Now, therefore I, Joe Wise, Mayor of Johnson City, Tennessee, do hereby proclaim May 2021 as Foster Care Awareness Month. I'll give you that. And then I'll invite you to introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about your program.
Yes. My name is Aisha Ward. I have been working with Youth Villages for 9 years, just working out in the community, talking with people, constantly raising awareness, and also speaking with people that would like to become foster parents themselves. This month, every year, it's our favorite month, but it's to connect to the community, but to keep the conversations going, not just about the kids that we serve, but about their families as well. And I know he read off a number that was really big with all the children that are in the system, but sometimes it feels overwhelming and people think, I can't really make a difference. There's too many kids in foster care. But you can't think about it like that. We have to think about it one child at a time, and it's like a domino effect. So if you can help just one child, they typically go on to help others. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Ward. Thank you. And I'll invite our nurses up. Sorry, do you want to announce what I'm about to do?
No, sir, you're fine.
Okay. We have a second proclamation for Nurse Appreciation Week, especially in 2021, an extra special appreciation. But let me read this and then we'll make that presentation. Whereas the largest healthcare profession in the United States is nursing, with more than 3.8 million registered nurses worldwide, and whereas nurses must have the strength to care for patients during times of disaster and crisis, the compassion to provide hands-on patient care at the bedside, and the commitment to remain involved in continuing education throughout their careers. Whereas the demand for registered nursing services is increasing due to the aging American population, the expansion of life-sustaining technology, the explosive growth of home health services, and a renewed emphasis on primary and preventative health care. Whereas National Nurses Week is celebrated annually from May 6 to 12 in conjunction with the birthday of Florence Nightingale, the founder of modern nursing, and is a time to show appreciation for the nurses who strive to provide safe, high-quality health care. And whereas whether it is a national health emergency or daily routine care, nurses' vital contributions impact the health and well-being of our communities, and for this reason, the American Nursing Association has chosen the theme of Nurses Make a Difference. And whereas more locally, more than 3,300 registered nurses work at Ballad Health, providing compassionate, expert health care to the people of our region every day. And whereas while these nurses have always put forth outstanding effort and care for their patients, their skills, dedication, and passion were never more evident than during the novel coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas the pandemic response from Ballad Health's nurses and other healthcare workers showcased their bravery and resolve and unquestionably saved countless lives, now therefore, I, Joe Wise, Mayor of Johnson City, in cooperation with the National Observance of American Nurses Association, do hereby proclaim May 6 through 12 Nurse Appreciation Week. Thank you very much. I would like you to introduce yourself and say any remarks you might like.
Yeah, I'm Morgan May. I'm the Chief Nursing Officer at Johnson City Medical Center. I have Stephanie Cook, the Chief Nursing Officer at Franklin Woods, and Holly Reinhart, the Chief Nursing Officer of Niswonger Children's Hospital. So we represent the 3 Ballad facilities here in Johnson City. On behalf of Ballad Health, we thank the City Commission for this proclamation. We most certainly could not have made it through this past year without the support of our community and our city. The unwavering support has been phenomenal, and we appreciate it, and thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies.
Commission, your next order of business is to consider approval of a certificate of compliance. This is for retail food store wine for the Publix located at 509 North State of Franklin Road, Suite 20. The appropriate reviews have been made, finding no disqualifying factors. Again, the state of Tennessee issues this license. This is just certifying that they are not in violation of any local laws or ordinances.
And though not expected to be, is the petitioner here tonight?
I don't know. I thought Mr. Dykes was going to get up, but no, sir, I don't think so.
Okay, is there a motion from the commission?
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Just so glad Publix is getting close to opening those doors soon.
So if there's no objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Next is consider approval of a certificate of compliance for retail food store wine for JNC 410 Limited Liability Corporation, doing business as Earth Fair, located at 1735 West State of Franklin Road. The appropriate reviews have been made, finding no disqualifying factors.
Is the applicant here? If not, does the commission wish to make a motion?
I'll move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Next is consideration of a beer license application for Boyd Hospitality LLC, doing business as Johnson City Doughboys, located at 111 Legion Street. The appropriate reviews have been made, finding no disqualifying factors. Again, this is for a Class 1 on-premise license only.
We got one. All right.
I would, been advised by the city attorney that this should be approved on condition that the sublease item at the end of the agenda be approved.
Would there be a motion to approve subject to that subsequent approval?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I do. I would like to mention, in the transition of management for Boyd Sports, citizens would appreciate if there was more information communicated to them about the changing of management and what's going on with the Doughboys versus Johnson City Cardinals. I know we had Zach. He's very involved in the community, and he just fell off. Nobody knew anything in the community, and so if we can have, I'm fine with them here. I think they do great, but just knowing what's going on with who's invested in the community.
Tonight, we have Jeremy Bowler, who's the vice president of Boyd Sports. He is here not only to comment on the beer license, but also the sublease, but he's prepared to expound upon the relationship of transitioning from the minor league baseball, where the Appalachian League is now going to be a collegiate league. So we can certainly have him brief you at this point or at the sublease item on the agenda.
I think it's necessary that we hear him out, just so we know who's involved here locally.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that's
Jeremy,
necessary for the
Walnut.
citizens.
Thank y'all for having me this evening. Jeremy Bowler, Vice President of Boyd Sports. So yes, Zach Clark did leave us, so Boyd Sports is still managing the Johnson City Doughboys of the Appalachian League, which is obviously no longer affiliated with minor league baseball, because minor league baseball doesn't exist anymore. So we are under the prospect development pipeline, officially affiliated directly with Major League Baseball. So Major League Baseball has a major financial commitment to the 10 Appalachian League clubs, which we are very, very fortunate to still be a part of, and all of our 10 communities in the league. Yes, Zach did leave, and unfortunately, with everything going on with a lot of our staff, we've had a lot of staff leave, our industry as a whole lately. And we do have a new general manager. We just hired her this week. Her first day was on Monday, and I haven't introduced her to anybody yet because I'm still trying to train her. And yesterday was opening day at the Smokies. So it's been a little bit of a crazy week, but I'll absolutely make sure we get her. Her name is Miss Kiva Fuller. She was the general manager of another baseball team. We are very, very fortunate to get her from Forest City, North Carolina, where she was a GM of a team over there in the summer collegiate baseball world too. So we'll get her introduced to everybody here very, very soon. So like everybody, I think in the country right now, we're short-staffed. And we, during the pandemic, we had to move some of our assets and employees around different companies of our teams in our company. And then, unfortunately, when Zach left, we didn't have anybody to replace them internally. We didn't have enough employees to promote from within at the time. So yes, unfortunately, we haven't had a lot of people here to communicate daily with. I've come up here twice a week trying to answer phone calls as much as I could, but trying to do so much from afar was a lot. So we have someone here now, so we're rocking and rolling. The Doughboys are here, ready to go. Opening day is June the 3rd.
So Jeremy, you mentioned the word Appalachian League, but that's gone now, the Appalachian League. Is that
The
correct?
Appalachian League is still alive. They kept the name.
Oh, okay.
Because
Okay.
Major League Baseball always had an involvement with the league itself.
Okay.
So minor league baseball never owned the Appalachian League like they did, say, the Southern League or the leagues like that, where they've all had to change names. So the Appalachian League still exists, and Major League Baseball is now the owner of the Appalachian League.
So how do you recruit the new teams, the Doughboys and the other 7 teams that are in the area?
So I like to say, like, our farm director basically is USA Baseball. They do this for a living. They hope with Team USA, and from the Olympic team all the way down to the younger kids in their complex in North Carolina. So they're acting as our farm director with Major League Baseball and actually out recruiting and finding these top freshmen and sophomores in the college ranks from all over the country. So we got kids locally from ETSU, Milligan, Tusculum, and Karshneuma and so forth too within the league, Lincoln Memorial. Then there's kids from California, Texas, Idaho, all over New York, everywhere. They're all coming in. So, and they're staying here locally at ETSU on campus. So them and the Elizabethton team as well.
Are they already in town now?
No, they arrive on June the 1st.
Okay, so they'll practice for a couple of days before they have their first game?
Yes, ma'am. They'll be there 2 days, and then we start off on June 3rd, ready to go.
Okay, very good.
So yes, we haven't been operating normally lately, but we're getting back up to speed and full strength and ready to get going, so.
Thank you. Are there other questions for Jeremy?
No, sir.
I'm just excited about your woman manager. That's great.
She's a veteran of the baseball industry, so I'm very fortunate and blessed to have her here too, so.
Well, thank you. We have, I think, a motion and a second on the floor. Is there objection to calling the roll now? If not, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
For ease of agenda management, would you like to go ahead and deal with the consideration of the sublease between Boyd Sports and Boyd Hospitality and just get both of those matters put together?
So pull that out of the consent agenda, or is that was not in the consent?
I think that was under other business.
Others under other. Does that need a motion?
It's fine with me.
You can just move it if you like.
Do we need a motion to adjust the agenda, or just go ahead and do it? If there's not objection,
You didn't
let's go
approve the
ahead.
agenda, so there's.
Okay, if there's
you-
not
you
an
would need
objection,
to-
let's consider 11.3 while Jeremy's here. Charlie, do you want to present the particulars?
Earlier this year, the commission entered into a facility lease with Boyd Sports to continue operating the TVA Credit Union Park, to manage the Johnson City Appalachian League Collegiate Baseball team, which of course is called the Doughboys, and authorize them to host other events as well. The terms of the lease also included concession rights, among other activities, but the lease does state that it restricts the lessee, being Boyd Sports, from assigning, transferring, or subleasing any aspect of their operations at TVA Park without the express written consent of the lessor. Of course, that's the city of Johnson City. And in order to allow the operation of a concessions food beverage operation, which of course includes the beer license under Boyd Hospitality, it would require the city commission to approve a sublease, essentially allowing that sublease to occur, transferring this concession operation to Boyd Hospitality, and of course the operation of the beer license. And that's what this is about. And it's been reviewed by the city attorney, drafted by the city attorney, and it's for you for consideration.
Are there questions for staff while Mr. Stahl is there?
No, I would move for approval.
We have a motion?
Second.
Have a second? If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Next on your agenda is consideration of the consent agenda.
I guess we'll go left to right with any that folks wish to pull for additional discussion. Commissioner Hunter?
No.
Commissioner Brock?
8.1.7.
Is that the only one? Okay. Vice Mayor?
8.1.2.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Murphy?
If you will please add 8.1.1.
Okay, so we have 3 pulled. Let's do them in order, which would put us with the approval of the 3-year agreement with Blue Cross Blue Shield as a third-party administrator. Is that going to be Steve or?
It will. Mr. Willis, please, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So what you have before you here tonight, Commission, is a 3-year renewal with Blue Cross Blue Shield to provide TPA services, which includes network as well as their discount program before you. The first 2 years of that renewal is a flat renewal, the same rate that we've been paying for the previous 3 years. Year 3 of this renewal will be a 3% increase, which is the first increase we have experienced since 2014. So staff certainly recommends that we approve the authorization for the mayor to sign the contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Are there questions for Mr. Willis? Just for the benefit of those who are here, you might just briefly describe how the city handles itself and, how the insurance works within an organization like the city.
So we are self-insured, meaning that we pay claims on a weekly basis from the city health insurance fund. We contract with a provider such as Blue Cross Blue Shield so that they administer claims for us, provide a network for our employees to utilize. And as I mentioned earlier, because of the utilization of that network, we experience extreme discounts, or significant discounts is a better word, for the services rendered to our employees, which also helps the city, given the fact that we fund the majority of the program. Blue Cross obviously has a lot of brand recognition. When an employee presents a Blue Cross Blue Shield ID card, that speaks volumes in the market. We've had a great relationship with them, and we certainly would like to continue that.
Are there other questions? If not, then I guess thank you, Mr. Willis.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Next item was 8.1.2, consider approval of a fee structure for reservations of downtown facilities. Ms. Shown?
Thank you, Mayor. As you all are aware, special events now falls under the umbrella of the city, and with that, we have enhanced our fee structure. The previous one in place when JCDA managed downtown spaces included Founders Park and King Commons. We've expanded to include the King Commons Amphitheater, the Downtown Breezeway, Majestic Park, which are becoming more common event spaces. And we've also recommended a 50% reduction in fees for bona fide nonprofit entities.
My question on coming up with a fee structure, Great Lawn for a half a day is $310, and then you get a reduction if you do it for the full day, but it's only $50 more for that. But the pavilion half day is $300, and then it's $450, which is a reduction. But it seems a whole lot more for a full day for the pavilion than a full day for the Great Lawn. And it's $310 for half a day and just $50 more for a full day. So was there a thought process in that, or just what we came up with?
Our thought process was to keep it simple and just transfer the previous fee structure you had in place. We didn't change anything that was old. This is what you had previously adopted with JCDA, and so we just added the new. Even if it's a half-day rental, the fees for our staff to come in and trash, cleaning, the wear and tear is still the same, really. Even if it's a half day, those costs don't get cut in half for people to come collect the garbage or clean the pavilion or Great Lawn areas. So
It seems like a really good deal to just go ahead and rent it for a full day
right,
for $50
that's
extra
what we think too.
That was my point. I made that point too.
So I just didn't know who came up with the fee, but it's I guess a real good deal for them. So,
These were previously established by the JCDA based on Parks and Recreation reservation fees.
Okay, all right.
So
Thanks.
they match up with our Parks and Rec fees fairly well, consistently, at least the approach to it.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there questions for Ms. Shown?
That's all I needed. Thanks.
It wasn't you. Thank you.
Thank you.
The last item pulled was the annual state route maintenance contract. Mr. Best,
Let me make an introductory comment first, if I could.
Please.
I actually pulled this just to make a point, but I would like to hear about, I talked to Mr. Peterson earlier this week, and this contract we're going to approve is only a portion of what we pay for mowing, for the right-of-ways that we take care of.
Yes.
So if you'll go ahead and tell us that, then I'll make my point at the end.
Sure. What's before you tonight is for our annual state maintenance, it's agreement with the state. It pays us for several different items. The one that was pulled specifically is everything from treatment of snow, ice, any type of paving, crack sealing, things of that nature, litter removal, and also mowing. There's another line item there that's interstate mowing. It is close to what we actually have to pay for interstate mowing. We do mow just a little bit more, but as far as mowing the right-of-ways within town, we do mow those at a more rate than the state allows, so to speak. So, but it does supplement what we end up paying for mowing.
So in total, what do we pay for mowing a year for these kind of?
The interstate itself is roughly 60,000 just to mow the interstate. The interchanges, and I don't have that contract. I looked up the interstate. I thought that might be the question. The interchanges are around 30, I believe, and then the total mowing everywhere in the city is around 120, I believe.
So a considerable amount,
Yes.
$250,000 or so.
Yes.
So here's my pitch. I see Mr. Dykes out here, so I couldn't pass up the chance because he's sitting in the audience too. And hopefully, Mayor, you're quite the horticulturist as well, that we might consider planting more wildflowers or pollinator gardens in some of these spaces that would keep us from having to mow, but to add to the flowering for the bees and butterflies around town. We were hoping at one time to try to create a monarch habitat area because they fly right through our area, and if we planted the right kind of wildflowers, the milkweed, they would stay with us for a while. So anyway, that's just my pitch, and hey, I've got the mic and the TV camera, so I'm going to, and Bright Ridge as well. I think we've talked about that under some of their right-of-ways, some of the under the wires, they could plant some more pollinators.
Are there other questions for Mr. Best regarding that item? If not, thank you, sir. Back to the full consent agenda. Is there a motion for approval? We have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Commissioner Brock. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4771-21. An ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, entitled "An Ordinance to Adopt a Code of Laws and Ordinances for the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict therewith and amendatory thereof by changing from I-2 heavy industrial zoning and R4 medium density residential zoning to R2 low density residential zoning and B3 supporting central business zoning and MX1 mixed-use neighborhood zoning, the following properties in the Mountain Home neighborhood: 207 Highland Avenue from R4 to R2, 201 Highland Avenue, 324 and 340 South Commerce Street from I-2 to R2, 917 West Watauga from I-2 to B3, 905 West Watauga, and 312 and 316 South Commerce from I-2 to MX1, 803 West Watauga from R4 to MX1, 222 and 224 Highland from R4 to MX1, 201 Lamont from R4 to MX1, 402 Whitney Street from R4 to MX1, and a portion of the CC&O Railway right-of-way from I-2 to B3 and R2 is ready for your consideration on first reading. Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Commissioners, we'll go through a quick presentation here. Let's start with a little bit of history. The Mountain Home neighborhood, pre-1972, was zoned R3, and at the time that was consistent with the type of neighborhood. Your older, more urbanized, small lot neighborhood, usually 50 by 125 lots that are alley loaded on a grid street network. In 1972, much of the neighborhood was actually rezoned, upzoned to the R4 or the R5. And based on our research, we found that reasoning behind that was really to encourage infill, recognizing the small lots, the urban character of the area. What happened, though, over the next 30 years was that they didn't get the infill, single-family infill on the lots like they had wanted. Instead, many of the large homes in the neighborhood were chopped up and converted into apartments. Other apartment development or apartment buildings were built in the neighborhood. So 30 years later, in 2005, really the entire neighborhood was downzoned back to R2C, actually even lower than what it was in 1972. And that was really to shore up the single-family character of the area and to bring the density back down. So today's consideration is in this very bottom kind of southeast corner of the area. We are not looking at any other portion of the neighborhood, just that southeast corner that's immediately adjacent to Founders Park. So let's walk through some of the whys and that we're bringing this to you. First of all, we want to start by saying that no part of this rezoning proposes to change the R2C. Again, the R2C was the intentional downzone in 2005, and so none of the properties involved in this rezoning changed those properties from R2C. The other is we're focusing on the Watauga corridor and what we call now the new Founders Park frontage. So I'm going to slip over here to another slide first, and this gives you a kind of a bird's eye view facing east from the edge of the neighborhood. Here is West Watauga right here. This is State of Franklin. So this is looking towards Founders Park, and you can see here that what was once largely industrial with warehousing, distribution, or other manufacturing uses, which are all gone now, is now very popular and beautiful open space that also access stormwater management, but a major public investment in this area. And so you have really kind of a newfound frontage in this area for these properties here along the outer edge of the neighborhood. When I think of another example of someone who has kind of come about newfound frontage, almost going from landlocked property to having beachfront property, is if you think of Atlantic Ale House, sat there looking at the back of the U-Haul facility for all those years, and then all of a sudden U-Haul facility's gone and you've got King Commons, and so you have a business owner now who has a whole different frontage and potentially increase in value. The other is the investment that the city has made in the multi-use trail that runs from West Watauga and then runs down Highland and into the open space areas. So that's one of the first things. Second is this intends to downzone and correct the heavy industrial zoning that's no longer needed in the area and allow for infill services. And then lastly, addressing vacancy issues along high traffic corridors such as West Watauga. So let's look at the request itself. Now, you may recall that this came before you for first reading in January of this year. However, immediately after that first reading, based on concerns raised by you all as well as concerns raised by the citizens in the area, we tabled this item and decided to come back when we had a little bit of a better game plan. And that game plan now involves three things. One is to only involve the properties that are considered currently non-conforming. So for example, the pool and spa store is currently zoned heavy industrial, so that would make that use non-conforming. And so the idea here is to bring that piece of property into conformity with the use. Another is properties that are owned by the city. And so the parking lot area for Founders Park is owned by the city. It too zoned heavy industrial, and so the proposal is to downzone that to the R2, which is really consistent with open space. And then the third, and this goes back to comments that you all made on first reading, is we have removed properties where property owners have not expressed specific desire to be a part of the rezoning. And so what we've done here is using these red X's, you can see we have removed these properties. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8 properties from the rezoning because those folks did not expressly state their interest in being a part of it. Others did, and so I will point those out here in a minute. In terms of the comp plan, consistency with the comp plan, you'll note that here on the left, the current land use is really quite varied, which is typical in an urban environment, especially close to downtown like this. But the future land use map recognizes, or I should say calls for, everything on the northwest side of state of Franklin to be residential or to maintain residential status. So this rezoning would not be consistent with that residential recommendation. However, these objectives that have been identified and specifically called out in greater detail in your staff report do explain or support why this rezoning should move forward regardless of the future land use map. Now, what I want to do is walk through in a little bit zoomed in greater detail for each area. And I did this, I added this part of the presentation because of conversation that was held at the Planning Commission meeting. And so I've reserved the last slide for that area that's right there next to the Founders Park parking lot. Looking here, this is 905 West Watauga, 917. Here's the pool store. This is the one that we're recommending to go to B3 because of the non-conforming status. Same thing with this small little strip center right here, 905 to go from heavy industrial to MX1. And then moving up to 803 West Watauga, which is actually this property right here, the little commercial building. And then 224 and 222 Highland, recommending that go from R4 to MX1. And this property owner, this is all, actually 2 properties here. These 2 buildings are on one, and then there's a vacant lot right next door. This particular property owner specifically asked to be a part of this rezoning. So let's go to what I would argue to be kind of the most difficult area and where there was the most conversation at the Planning Commission. And we'll start with, I would argue, the easy, and this is the city-owned property. This land right here that is largely encompassed by either Brush Creek or by the multi-use trail and the parking lot. Here we're recommending to downzone that from heavy industrial to the R2. I want to note that here on this outer bend here where Highland turns into Whitney, you all have already rezoned this last lot to MX1. So that is a current zoning classification already in the neighborhood on the end of the block here. The other 2 areas that Mr. Peterson noted are 312 and 316 South Commerce. These 2 lots were recently sold by you all to Michael Manzi, and he has a development proposal for this particular area, and he made comments about that at the Planning Commission as well. But this would be a downzoning or a corrective zoning from I-2 to MX1. And the property that really generated the most conversation at the Planning Commission was this one right here, 201 Lamont and 402 Whitney. You have 2 homes that sit on one piece of property, which is in and of itself a non-conforming situation. But this particular property owner asked to be a part of the rezoning, and the proposal is to change that from R4 to MX1, consistent with the lot that's already lower or to the south. And so again, what you have here is an area that is no longer fronting upon or backing up to industrial and warehousing and distribution, that now has this newfound frontage onto the significant public open space or significant investment that you've made in public open space. And so
That's a good question, Preston.
Sure, absolutely.
If you go back to that, is there a reason why we didn't go to MX1 on the I-2 to MX1 instead of I-2 to R2? I know it's city property and we're probably not going to build anything. We're probably going to keep the parking lot there, but is there a reason why it went to R2?
The R2 is more consistent with really acting as an open space zone. And so since the parking lot is public parking, and we would not sell or even be able to develop the land to the south of the parking lot, it's really most appropriate that all of this city-owned property, which will most certainly remain in city ownership, go to a zone that is appropriate for open space.
Okay.
Most of the zones that are in this action before us, R4 to R2, I2 to R2, are sort of intuitively apparent. You're moving from industrial to residential, you're moving from high-density residential to lower-density residential.
Sure.
The one that's probably a bit of a mystery to most people who may be watching the meeting is MX1.
Right.
Can you talk about what MX1 means and how it behaves differently than, say, R2, 3, or 4?
Sure, happy to. First of all, the MX1 is, first and foremost, what its name implies. It encourages mixing of uses, and that the separation of usage, which is really what you find in a lot of kind of very typical 80s and 90s zoning codes, where the idea was that you separate everything into a residential area, or you separate everything into a commercial or an industrial area. What we have found is that, especially in your older urbanized areas and areas where we're trying to encourage infill development, is that these mixed-use zones, especially those that are small scale, allowing uses to come together and coexist, such as retail or restaurant, cafe, pub, or something like that on a ground floor with office or residential above it, that those kinds of investments and those kinds of small-scale developments have really done wonders for some of the neighborhood edges that maybe have eroded over time or have suffered from large vacancy issues because of the lack of investment or the lack of maintenance on properties. And so this small-scale mixed use encourages the pedestrian, or supports and encourages pedestrian activity. It's not automobile dominant like you would have in a traditional commercial zone like along State of Franklin where Lowe's is and that kind of thing. That's automobile dominant. These mixed use zones encourage both the automobile but the pedestrian and the bicyclist as well. And then how do you mix those two uses together? And then what becomes important is the design ultimately, and what does the building look like? How does it address the public realm? And that's what the mixed-use district does. And we have two mixed-use districts in our zoning code. We have one that really addresses large areas, and then this one specifically that addresses your small-scale neighborhood areas.
So if I buy a piece of property that's zoned MX1, I can just come in and build whatever I want?
You can build whatever is identified in the zoning code. And so there are a list of permitted uses, and again, those uses are going to be a range of uses from residential to office or institution to daycare, all the way up to small-scale goods and services, so like a bakery or a coffee shop or a brew pub or something like that.
Is there a binding site plan required for an MX1 or just?
There is a binding site plan required, and there is a formal site plan process that one must go
So unlike
through.
an R2, if I bought a parcel of R2, as long as I abide by your setbacks, I can pretty well do whatever I want.
As long as you abide by the setbacks and any buffering requirements, as well as the parking
Well, but R2
requirements.
wouldn't have much buffering requirement.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about back to the MX1.
No, where I'm going with this is if we grant MX1,
Right.
we still have another opportunity to refine that move in the later consideration of what somebody's trying to do on that property.
Right, exactly.
Which is not true of the R2 or
Correct.
R4.
Correct.
Okay.
The R2 and the R4 are your traditional residential zones that only allow open space or a
Certain
golf
density.
course and very low density and residential only, yes.
And so, for example, to your point earlier, if you go back a map or two,
Sure.
I think just above the pool, I may have misspoken. Keep going, sorry.
That's all right.
There we go.
Oh, okay.
In the map on the right, if I'm not mistaken, the property that's not contiguous following up Watauga, the sort of northwesterly most.
These two right here?
Yeah. I believe those properties, or at least one of them, has a commercial building built on it now.
Yeah, go forward.
I mean, I think it's an old TV shop.
Maybe one more.
Bear
You could see them right here. There are actually two residences right here.
No, across the street from the residence. If you were, you can't see it in that picture.
Okay, well, let's go up here.
There you go. I'm sorry, there it is, yeah. So there's the church, and just below the church, that's what we're talking about making MX1.
Correct.
Right, understood, but there's a commercial so this notion of small-scale commercial coexisting or mixed-use coexisting in residential clearly was the case when Roosevelt was president.
Sure.
So, I mean, we're not really doing anything that crazy.
No.
If we do this.
Right.
Okay. Maybe Hoover. I don't know. Hoover? About when would that have happened?
I think that building dates back to the 40s.
So Roosevelt.
Right.
Okay.
And the building on the corner, the home on the corner there, that is a good example, and we got into this conversation at the Planning Commission, is that where you have a residential structure, especially along a busy corridor like this, that might not be finding its highest and best use, that of residential in the future, what is supported is something called adaptive reuse. And so where you can take that structure and you can adaptively reuse it to some other lower intensity use. Right, exactly, like an office, law office, doctor's office, things like that. You have, this commission has supported adaptive reuse and rezoned both Unaka and Watauga in a way that has allowed many of those large homes along both of those one-way corridors to be reused for professional purposes so that nothing happens to them.
Sorry, I kind of interrupted your
Don't worry about
stride
it. No,
there.
there's a lot to process here. We understand that. There was a lot of conversation at the Planning Commission. Commissioner Brock understood she had some great questions and a lot of dialogue during that meeting. And so, we're here to help answer questions. We know this is just the first reading, but what we wanted to do was bring back to you an ordinance that was more palatable to you than what you addressed or what you had in front of you back in January.
Are there questions for Mr. Mitchell?
Was there a vote on the Planning Commission on it? I don't see it in the notes.
Planning Commission did support this. It was not unanimous. It was voted 6-1, but they did recommend in favor.
I'll just make a couple comments, and I did vote for it in the Planning Commission, although I struggled with it for sure, and I still struggle with it. When this first was brought to us, it was in a bigger bundle.
Sure.
It had, 20 properties or something like
Yes,
that
ma'am.
in it. And I had a great deal of concern. I couldn't vote for anything that had that many properties that were going to be affected by one vote. And I'd asked for them to kind of be unbundled, so that while it's been reduced, they still aren't unbundled. So there's a property in there I could not vote for, so I can't vote for any of it. So the one that is up there at 402-201 Lamont, where you've got residential on both sides of it. And I don't think any of us would want, people move into neighborhoods, R2 neighborhoods for residential, and they rely upon the zoning for protection of that kind of life that they've chosen. I'm a believer in MX1, particularly on the outer edges of neighborhoods. But when they're being wedged in between two residences, so right there on that corner of Lamont, I mean, you could have a brewery, put in there as well, who play music at night. And so I'm just going to err on the side of the residents that this is, this is a long-established neighborhood, and I think this more interior in the block, I can't vote for that particular property. And because it's bundled, I can't vote for it all. So, thank you.
Questions for Mr. Mitchell? Now, this is first reading, so it will come, if passed tonight, will come to us 2 more times. And have we noticed a public hearing at the second reading?
That comes immediately after this. but
Okay,
yes,
so we
have
would
to do an ad in the
anticipate doing
paper.
that, all right. Is there desire to take action on this tonight? I thought I
Just
heard a motion at one
As a
point.
reminder, that 201 and 402 property was owner requested, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
He showed up at, in October of last year, we rented a tent and placed that tent right here in the parking lot and had donuts and coffee and sent out invitations to everyone in the zoning area, asking them to come down and be a part of the conversation. And we had maps and number of folks and information there to answer questions. And that property owner walked down and was excited about this particular rezoning and wanted to be a part of it.
And to answer your question, Mayor, I'll make the motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve on first reading. Is there a second? Second. We have a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
No.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
No.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. What's up next?
Your next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4769-21, an ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, entitled an ordinance to adopt a code of laws and ordinances for the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict therewith and amendatory thereof by changing from R3 medium-density residential zoning to B4 planned arterial business zoning, property located at 115 Swanee Drive. Ready for your consideration on third and final reading.
There have been no changes, but I can answer any questions or go through the presentation again if you like.
Does anyone need the presentation again?
Move for approval.
A second.
You're really eager to get, okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion or objection to calling the roll?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Next order of business is a presentation by Mr. Dykes and Company. We've asked him to come in and give us an update on the rollout of the broadband and also the installation of the LED street lighting for us. And we'd also take money if you're coming. Welcome, Jeff.
Yeah, Mayor Weiss and Commissioners Murphy and Fowler, Ms. Brock and Hunter, thank you all so much for being here. The first thing, and I need to do this from Bright Ridge, from my board and from the employees there, Pete, we just want to thank you for everything you've done for this city, everything you've done for us as Bright Ridge. Your friendship is certainly valued, but what you have done throughout the years to make this a better place, from Bright Ridge, we want to thank you, and we're going to miss you, and we're glad that we at least have you through the end of the year to pester and give a hard time. But just wanted to be sure that we passed along to you our gratitude from Bright Ridge for everything you've done. So thank you so much.
I sincerely appreciate that. It's been a pleasure and a joy to work with the Johnson City Power Board, now known as Bright Ridge, through the years. And working together, I think we've made significant improvements to the community. And likewise, I'm very appreciative of all that Bright Ridge has done for us. Thank you very much, sir.
So much.
And yes, I will pester you for 8 more months.
I would expect nothing else. But again, and the opportunity to come to you now to give you kind of an update of where the broadband is at. A few years ago, we came for you saying we'd like to go into the broadband business. We came before you to become an energy authority, and we thank the commissioners and the previous commissioners for allowing us to move forward with that. One of the key things, and you'll know, Mr. Murphy, you probably haven't been told this, but many times when I get in front of folks, they say he will be here all night. And that's why I brought my chief broadband officer to give you the update on the broadband, and then I have some
He's not kidding. He's not kidding at all.
I'm kidding. If you ever need a good sermon on Sunday, let me know, but just plan on being there a while. But wanted him to come because he certainly, we're really tickled that he came on board with us, and this thing is moving well, even better than we had hoped and expected. And I'll let him do that, and then I have a short presentation, but this is also an opportunity to let you know that I am not the only long-winded one at Bright Ridge. So Stacy, if you want to come forward, Stacy Evans is our Chief Broadband Officer, and I'll let him run through the broadband, and then I will come up with a brief.
Good evening. I'll load a PowerPoint to show you real quickly. All right. So it has been a few years since we had a chance to present to you what we're doing with the broadband project. When we launched this, we wanted to offer three primary services. Data services, which include internet, and then business WAN or wide area network connections. And video offerings are the choice of the consumer, whether they want to do over-the-top streaming or our own video product. And then for the telephone services, both business and home products. So when we were looking at building this, we didn't want to build just another broadband service. We wanted to build it with the next generation product and equipment. In doing so, we offer what we call the next generation services, including services up to 10 gig symmetrical to the home. And we brought Johnson City to the point that in 2019, you were the 6th community in the United States to say you could offer 10 gig services. We were the first to offer it out of the gate for a new startup broadband company, and we were the first to make it available to any consumer that had fiber optic services to their home. In launching this, we also made all of our services to the home symmetrical, and as people have worked from home, telecommuted, educated from home during the COVID pandemic, you realized how important that bandwidth was, especially in the upstream mode that we provide. Some things we do differently. We do not require contracts for our services for residential. There's no data caps for usage, free installation up to about $800 value, and we have local customer support and 24/7 technical support service available. So not go off for pricing in a sales pitch, but just mention that 10 gig service, we made that available for $149.99, the lowest cost in the country for such a service. So we're very proud of that. We've had several takers for the product. We've got some people in the community that are professional gamers that take advantage of that and are able to compete on a national level, make an income with it. So when we built this network, we looked at how can we make sure we've got what we need available for our customers, and we established connectivity into the Washington, D.C. area and also Atlanta, Georgia, which are two of the top peering points for the internet and other connectivity in the nation. 70% of the world's internet goes through Ashburn, Virginia, outside of D.C., and so we've got direct multiple 100 gig links to those locations. So we've got all the bandwidth you need. We're also peering with other utilities in the area to help them provide them bandwidth for their needs in those communities as well. So this shows you what we had completed through June 30th of 2020. We had right at 11,000 passings or customers that could take our services. The red areas on the map are those that could have fiber optic connectivity. The ones in green were the fixed wireless, so more of the rural areas that we're addressing. So this is our phase 3 construction. This would be primarily the gray Oak Grove region of the service territory. Those in red, those areas are ready and servicing customers. That represents about 5,072 total. The ones in orange are coming very soon, within weeks, and the ones in yellow, all those will be done by the end of June. So that entire area will represent close to 9,000 customer passings, homes, and businesses. And by the time all that's done, I'm going to slide in a second, but that'll put us at 20,000 passings by the end of June. So one of the things we're really glad to do was take advantage of some grant opportunities this past year with the COVID relief emergency funding, and we're able to build 70 miles of fiber in areas that weren't really targeted for that. So if you look at the green area there in Bowman Town, and also Pleasant Valley, this represents 650 customers that had no broadband options available to them. We heard the stories of how people were having to travel to the parking lots of Lowe's or Walmart to do their work, as they couldn't, go into work to do that or educate from home. So we're able to make these services available. We had very high take rate as those areas because they needed it. And then in addition to that, we have 28 locations in Washington County in the areas adjacent that people can go up and use that for free access to the internet, particularly for students to get online, download their work when they couldn't go to the school, those kind of things. And that wasn't just the end of it. Besides those 650 locations, Bright Ridge is committed to putting additional money behind that. We'll to extend that to another 1,051 homes over the next several weeks. So that's something we're working on right now as well. So just show you this map. The one on the left was our fixed wireless planned area. And I just kind of contrast that. If you look on the right side, that area in red, especially in the center left, that's Bowmantown and Pleasant Valley above it. So those were areas that would have only had fixed wireless. It's a great product, but the problem with that is if you've got trees and hills, you may or may not be able to serve every customer. With the fiber, we know 100% we can serve every customer, and when you can provide them the same services you can get in downtown Johnson City. So we're very excited about that. We've got other grant applications out, hoping to get some additional matching money there in the future to continue to build that in those rural communities. And then if you look at what we'll have done by the end of June this year, we'll have right at 20,000 passings for fiber. That's actually 5,360 more than we had planned in our business plan. So when we talked to you 3 years ago, for the same amount of money or less, we have provided that many extra customers with services. So very excited about that.
Is that because of the aid that came into broadband, or was that because of a higher take rate in the earlier zones?
It's really a combination of two things. One, the aid did help in getting to some rural areas, but secondly, our efficiency in the way we built the network out really turned out to be really positive for us and a cost saver in that capital expenditure. And this is just a quick graph, and there's no numbers really there, but if you look at the blue dot on the right, that is our business goal for number of customer adds for the fiscal year, and you can see the red line, we're on target to way exceed that. So we're very excited about our numbers and take rate and customer interest. We had one of our salespeople in the neighborhood just last week. It's a new area we just started offering service to, and he was flagged down by 4 residents that lived there wanting to talk about service before he can even stop and try to approach them. So it's great to see that kind of excitement that customers are wanting the service and appreciate that. And so, as you know, this is a multi-year build out, and we have 8 years on plans. He asked Jeff, he said, that's not the end, that's just what we got on the agenda. And through 8 years, we're expecting to cover 75% of the population areas of Washington County. So, and that's progressing on very well. And I just shared this with you. This is one of our 10 gig customers. He's a gamer, actually, and I've redacted some of the names and so forth. But he had a speed test, and he posted that speed test on social media. Some of his friends across the world, they weren't even all in the United States, that are also fellow gamers, said, it looks like you're plugged into a NASA tower, you know, talking about the speeds it's getting. Said, are you in Area 51 with your modem? You know, do you need a roommate? They're ready to move here. And we've had a lot of people that moved to take advantage of the broadband options. You know, some people say, how am I even supposed to, you know, compete against this? And how's this even possible? So anyways, it's great to see those comments, and this is getting attention, not just locally, but other people in the country are seeing those kind of things. We also have had the privilege of working with the JCDA and offering public Wi-Fi in the areas of Founders Park and Farmers Market, Kings Common, and also in the downtown area. So we're glad to participate in that project. And so I'd like just any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer anything you might have. All right, if not, I will turn to
You know what I'm
Jeff, and
asking?
we'll see how short he can
Me?
be.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask.
When are we getting to phase 7?
Face that.
That's my phase.
When's he gonna
That's
be
my
at my
phase,
house?
and I'm on the board.
Well, we're working on it. We're trying to be good stewards of our investment and use the money wisely. So
Now,
we
like
are
the
progressing.
corridor along Boone's Creek, that was phase 2 or phase 3?
Phase 3 in Boone's Creek, and so
Okay.
all that will be done by the end of June. So
Okay.
that's well on target. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you for the opportunity, and I will turn it to Mr. Dykes.
You're way too fast. I was expecting you to go 20, 30 minutes.
It's 10 gigs.
Yeah, that's impressive. I will tell you that one of the things with the broadband, and this will be my chance to give the pitch, is I would highly recommend that the city of Johnson City, of course, Washington County, especially city, run with this thing and promote this city. Use that. One of our things is we say, promote the city as a 10 gig city. You don't even have to say that Bright Ridge is involved. You are a 10 gig city. Because I know from Bright Ridge's side that when those people want to come here and move here and they say, where can I get 10 gig, they're coming to us. So take this thing, as I always say, use us, abuse us, promote this, everything, and let's see this city grow. I get excited, I can tell you, and I won't start a speech, Pete, but really, we need to really promote ourselves. and what this region has to offer and what this city has to offer. And Pete's starting to laugh because he knows I get revved up. The gentleman, when the folks came out to get him right when he drove into the neighborhood, if you've seen some of our electric vehicles and they are blazoned and bright and colorful, we need to put an ice cream music with them. But when he rolled in with that car, he was shocked that he had people from 5 homes that immediately descended on his car because they wanted to be a part of that. So that's exciting.
And just to address, lest people think your suggestion has yet to be heeded, we are actively promoting the 10 gig. In fact, I and the city manager have been a part of meetings in the last month with business interests looking to locate multi-million-dollar projects, and the determining factor is their ability to connect with that bandwidth, and that makes us very competitive for a sort of job opportunity for folks that didn't exist before the broadband.
It is exciting, and I know we've done some work with the CVB and stuff on some videos and doing some more. It's exciting. I mean, like many of y'all, when can I get it? When can my wife asked me the same thing. We're in a very late phase. I told her the best option we've got is to get it sooner is to move in closer. But now I want to, and Pete, you will be tickled. I have, and if I can, I only have one slide. If you notice that, one slide. And now, I can talk 40 minutes on one slide, so y'all go ahead and kick back and relax. But just wanted to give you an update. Several years ago, we had met with Mr. Peterson and had gone over the lighting in the city and what can we do. And I know there's companies that come in and want to take that over and change to LEDs. But for me, it was like, hey, with us working with the city, you shouldn't give up any of the savings you're going to get to pay this third-party company. So what we started on was an 8-year plan to change out the lighting in the city to LED lighting, and that'll save you 17 to 20% on your electric cost. And so you'll reap those benefits. So to just kind of update you, out of the 8,134 Copperhead Lighting, which is your basic street lighting within the city limits, we have already changed out 6,513. And so we have about 1,600 left of those lights to do. If you look at the blue and the red area, you can see the downtown Johnson City proper and the green stuff has already been completed with the street lights. The blue area has been engineered, so we'll be working on those. The red area, which gets you out towards the outer parts of the city and even out towards the gray area that's in the city limits, those are in the process of being engineered. So we expect to complete those within the next 6 months to a year to have that completed, and we'll have all 8,134 LED lights done. The remaining things that are out there is the decorative lighting that will be converted to LED lighting also. Those take a little longer because we're having doing some engineering so we can change those out. We did 190 right downtown at the very kickoff of this project so we could get those in place. And so those will be engineered. The original 8 years we were looking at, we probably will be within that 8 years. It may stretch out just a little bit past the original 8 years. And that's simply because with manpower and staffing, we also are in the midst of rollout of broadband. And we've pulled people and done engineering for that and done stuff for the broadband at the same time we're doing this. So I can tell you, we've got folks extremely busy out there. That's the way I like it, right, Stacy and Mark? We expect 24/7, 7 days a week, right, Pete? That's what we like to see. And so it's exciting for me that we are really on schedule for the LED lighting change out at the same time that we are on schedule with our broadband rollout, ahead of schedule as far as passings and take rates. So we've got some exciting things. That covers, unless there's some questions on the LED lighting that you might have. Because I have a couple of things that aren't on my thing.
Can you get done by the end of the year?
With his comments?
Yeah.
With those, we'll do everything we can just for you. But a couple of things I really just wanted to mention because we're excited with the things that are going on in the city, certainly. We're really excited, and of course, Mrs. Brock is on our board, and she can tell you a lot of the exciting things we have going. June the 8th, we will be having the groundbreaking for the next 9 megawatts of solar that we'll be doing. That's exciting for us. June 3rd, there'll be the rollout of the electric bus that Washington County was the only one in the state of Tennessee that applied for an electric bus. And TVA and Bright Ridge went to work with them, so that's getting ready to roll out. But one of the things that I will also say that is exciting for me is, if you've not heard about it, is the Home Uplift Program. TVA always had programs if you were building homes and doing stuff, but they never had that program that really reached down, gave us the opportunity to work with the low-income side of our customers. And they came out with a Home Uplift Program, which allowed our board at Bright Ridge to approve $400,000 that TVA put in almost $200,000 to start working and doing energy audits and doing stuff that we could go in and we could update homes. We could change out heating and air units. We could, get them more efficient and do so many great things. And I can tell you right now, we have just recently, in talking with TVA, they actually upped the amount they were giving us. So we actually this year hope to spend $800,000 between half Bright Ridge, half TVA, to impact people in our community and make their homes more efficient and make their lives better, and also save them money. Right now we have 53 homes that have been approved. We've got 74 more that are in the process of being approved. And for me, that's exciting because that touches people's lives. It changes their lives. When you can save someone money and make their home safer, more environmentally healthy, you have really started to impact your community. So I am really excited about that. The great thing is TVA has seen how impactful this is. They said, we're going to continue this program next year. So we will be continuing this, and I hope this is a year after year is just a continual process.
If someone is interested in learning more about that program or applying, what do they need to do?
If you could contact Bonnie Donnelly or Tim Whaley at our place, they can get you all the information on the program.
So through the Bright Ridge main phone number, 952-5000. I call you a lot.
That's good. That's
We could
good.
get Keisha
But
and
yes,
they can
no,
put it on
I
the
would really
website.
encourage anyone that would like to know more about the program, just contact us and we can get you on board. Because again, this is for me, one of the more exciting programs TVA has done in years, and the opportunity for Bright Ridge really to, when you look at things, broadband, huge impact to our community. You look at the solar opportunities, impact to our community for economic development and everything. And then you look at the Home Uplift Program, another huge impact to our community. So, that's our goal at Bright Ridge. I can tell you with our board is constantly looking, and we've got more things that they're going to be looking at. But how can we impact our community to make it better and make lives better for everyone in the community, not just a few? So I just wanted to bring that program up too. And Pete, believe it or not, unless you all have some questions, I will. This is hard for me to say. I'll be quiet.
I think we may have some business for the Home Uplift Program. So.
No, that'd be great. Please do if you contact us.
Are they Bright Ridge technicians that are actually doing the work, or do you
No,
a third party, or how's that work?
We contracted, it's done through a third party because of the staffing requirements would be needed because,
Sure.
with manpower, you see with everything got going. But this is a company called Clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went blank, but it's hard to believe. I went blank. But it is a company that has been qualified by TVA that you had the option of doing it yourself or using them. And what we realized is we could meet the needs of people faster by using that company and allowing
And do they
them to
do
it.
the work, or they do the audit?
They will do the audit, and then there are local contractors that are qualified by TVA that can do the work.
Replace the whatever.
I give you an example of the 53 homes that we're currently in process. We're averaging $7,690 per home that is being spent on those homes to help people out. So, I mean, when you think about it, that's a lot of money. And it replaces everything from if they have bad heating and air conditioning units, if they have, it covers like for roofs, for insulation, underpinning. So when you're looking at an average of $7,690 per home, that has a huge impact on someone. So for me, that's a tremendous thing.
I think one of the really great benefits of it, you were talking about making their house safer, yes, but it makes their house more comfortable, because if they've got cold air coming in the wintertime faster than whatever heating unit can heat it, it's not comfortable either. plus you've got a 1,000-square-foot home and they're paying $300 a month, for a utility bill. And so this is going to bring that way down. So in the long run, it's going to be money in their pockets
It is.
just from the savings on their
No.
electric bill.
No, it's exciting. So again, just anytime y'all peek before you're gone, anytime you want me to come speak, you just let me know. I appreciate it. Thank y'all so much.
When you
Thank you for
bring
your
the in
time.
lieu of tax check, yeah.
Yeah.
When are we going to lunch and swap checks?
Well, I
End
don't
of
know that
June?
I don't know that we swap checks. I generally was handing you one, and you slid me the check for the meal too. So, at June, the in lieu of tax will be coming out in June, and that's always, I think, we are the largest taxpayer to the city of Johnson City.
It's always fun. In the end of June, Jeff takes me to lunch and hands me about a $4 million check. It's a good deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, can't beat that deal. can you?
Then you leave it in your
Thank
car
you.
for a while and then
No,
remember I need to
I
give it
went
to
straight to
Janet.
Janet, say, here,
Yeah.
take this thing away from me.
Yeah. Again, thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Y'all have a great
Thank you,
evening.
Jeff. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeff. All right. Mr. Lane. John Lane is here to do a presentation on an update on the capital projects of water sewer. I haven't seen this, but I'm going to predict that you all are going to be astounded at how much work is going on and the dollar value of that work. And
Well, we voted for it, so we're kind of familiar.
I'll have to give John a lot of credit. He has really stepped up and taken this thing and run with it and done a great job. I'm very appreciative
Thanks,
of all
Mr.
you do.
Peterson. So I'll give everybody an update for the water and sewer capital projects. The last time we did this was September of last year.
There you go.
Last time we did this was September of last year, so we'll just give everybody an update. So introduction, on the water sewer side, we have two types of projects. We have our debt-funded capital projects, which are kind of the heavy civil, the usually longer duration projects that we use our master plans as kind of the roadmaps for those locations. And then we have our rate-funded capital projects, which are shorter duration. A lot of those fall into repetitive categories, kind of our galvanized projects, our sewer rehab projects. So this slide just represents all the different master plans we have. The one you see in red, though, that's part of our proposed fiscal year 2022 budget. We're going to we have a plan to do an update to our water master plan this year. So this just shows 4 different project signs. The 2 on the left are for Upper Reedy Creek Phase 1 and Phase 2, which started last fall in construction. The 2 on the right you see there are projects that started earlier this year, the Lower Brush Creek Interceptor Project, Contract 1, and then also the Brush Creek Aeration Project, which I'll mention in a few minutes. Projects completed since September of last year. The first one is the Knob Creek and Brush Creek Wastewater Treatment Plant Improvements Project. That was awarded to Frizzell Construction in 2016. The project has been completed. It was closed out December 17th of last year. All the components designed and installed are functioning as expected. You see here on the next slide, those are 2 screw presses that were part of that process that was installed on that project, and they're presently in use. The picture you see here is a picture of our used sewer lift station. It's a new standby generator that was installed by our own water sewer personnel. This used sewer lift station, it is downstream of, it catches flow from the Tri-Cities Airport and also Northeast State Community College. It's kind of out State Route 75, out in that corridor of our service area. Buttermilk Road waterline replacement. This project was awarded March 19th of last year to GRC Construction. You kind of see 2 pictures there. It was replacing 9,000 feet of 4-inch cast iron water line. So it's off Buttermilk Roads. You see it's the road off of State Route 36. This project closed out in the January 21st commission earlier this year, so it's complete. The Masters Knob Tank Repair and Recoating. You see on the picture on the right is a picture of the final product after it was recoated. It's a 2 million gallon water tank that we have. It makes up about 12% of our overall storage in the water system. The project was awarded July of last year. It closed out on the January 2021 commission, so it's now been completed. Boones Creek and I-26 interchange, I don't know if you've driven it out on exit 17 yet or not, but on the water sewer side, we end up installing about 1,700 feet of 24-inch sewer line underneath the interchange and 1,700 feet of 16-inch water line. So the water sewer portion has been completed and the overall project has now been completed out there. This picture here, you kind of just see the work that goes in on the sewer side. kind of gets forgotten, but we actually installed a 24-inch sewer line that was about 17 feet deep under the interchange. So they started this construction at the very beginning. It was one of the very first items 2 years ago. So you kind of just see the work that has to be done in order for that to happen underneath the bridge right there. K2D Sanitary Sewer Basin Rehabilitation. This was our most recent sewer rehab project. We've been trying to average one of those per year. You kind of see the two pictures at the bottom. These are kind of the setups. This is when they're doing the main line lining, and then the picture on the right is for the lateral lining. But this project took place in the Princeton Road corridor of Johnson City, so kind of bounded by East Oakland Avenue on the downstream side and I-26 on the upstream side. We also did line a couple of segments also on Science Hill and Judith Drive as part of that project. All the construction activities are completed, and we will have this for commission approval to close out later this spring. ARC grant for downtown water and sewer improvements. This is the one, if you see in the map on the right, it was broken into two phases. Phase one was the portion on Buffalo Street where we relined the existing gravity sewer line. So it started as an 18-inch line kind of on Cherry Street intersection of Buffalo, and it actually is a 30-inch sewer line that runs under the box culvert through downtown. And then phase two was East Market Street. We had the contract work completed by, contractor did all the sewer line work on East Market Street, and then our own water and sewer personnel did all the water line replacement. So all the construction activities are completed by water and sewer. We're presently coordinating with Public Works on the repaving right now in the sidewalk restoration. I'll show you a picture here. I don't know if y'all saw this, but if you're driving downtown from last fall to now, this is one of the trucks that was set up at Yeehaw Brewery. So that's part of the relining process of the sewer line. It's actually a hot water cure, but they have to invert it and then pull it through. So that was set up here in this picture of Yeehaw Brewery. And then this picture you see here is kind of the final product after it's been relined. And kind of just the difficulty that's encountered downtown. You see in this picture here, this was two sewer laterals that were replaced on East Market Street. So anytime you dig a hole downtown, just the difficulty in having to work around existing utilities. So both of these actually were installed over to the Crest building, right at the corner of South Roan Street and East Market Street. And then these are kind of just an overall snapshot. This was our water and sewer personnel there on site, but that project has now been completed construction-wise.
As far as the water and sewer?
On the water and sewer, correct, yeah. We ended up installing a 12-inch water line that's connected all the way through here, and all new fire lines and new service connections for that whole block of East Market Street.
And so remaining left is resurfacing sidewalks?
And sidewalks, that's correct.
And it might be out of your department, but what's the time frame?
We've been coordinating with Public Works on a regular basis, so I think they're planning to mobilize hopefully anytime soon to finish out their portion. So then we'll reopen the East Market Street to traffic again. Projects under delivery. So Upper Reedy Creek Sanitary Sewer Phase 1, this was awarded to Merkle Brothers Construction. If you've driven out on Kiefhofer Road, they were installing a new 12-inch gravity sewer line. The sewer line has now been installed and tested. We're now doing final cleanup and paving. So we plan to have this one for closeout for commission approval in the later this spring or early summer.
Are all the neighbors good
Yes.
with the project
Yes,
now?
ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes. Upper Reedy Creek Phase 2 was awarded to Thomas Construction last August. This one's still continuing construction. We're entering the last stages. You see on the picture on the right, it actually includes a new sewer pump station. So we'll have a standby generator there. That's what's being constructed right now, and they're doing the final pieces of the new 10-inch gravity sewer line as well. We're about 96% complete with the new gravity sewer line installation, so we'll have this one for closeout later this spring as well. The EDA grant, Brush Creek blower and electrical replacement. This project includes a $1.5 million EDA grant. We're replacing 1971 and 1985 aeration equipment. You kind of see the picture down here at the bottom right. This is where the majority of the work is occurring. So the overall project includes some interior and exterior architectural improvements to this building, and also new blowers and new electrical equipment there. So this is actually inside the Brush Creek plant, the fence line. This project is. The contractor is now on site, and they've already begun doing demo work. Lower Brush Creek Interceptor project. This one's broken into two different contracts. Contract one's for a little over 13,000 feet. That project has already been awarded to Garney, and they are on site installing new 42-inch sewer line. And contract two is the last 7,600 feet. We plan to advertise that one to bid later this month and then open at the end of June. I'll show you a couple pictures of Garney. They've already installed a little over 800 feet in a second. But this kind of shows the breaking point between where contract one ends and where contract 2 begins and kind of in relation to where the Brush Creek plant is. So it ends up being contract 1 is 2/3 of the total, and then the last third is contract 2. But here's some pictures. So Garney is on site presently. They're kind of, they've staged most of their equipment kind of at the corner of Riverview and Watauga Road. This is the bypass pumping setup. So this allows the existing flow to be bypassed around the construction area. Here's what just kind of lay down area of the new 42-inch pipe. Here's contractor installing a new 7-foot diameter sewer manhole, and then the installation of a new 42-inch piece of pipe. It's 20 feet long. Unicoi Spring House. This is a picture of the existing Unicoi Spring House out in Unicoi. So it actually was installed in 1910. The existing Unicoi Spring House provides about 3 million gallons a day of water storage to our water system daily. So we awarded, Frizzell Construction was awarded on the December 17th meeting for the construction of a new spring house. They've actually now mobilized on site. They're starting erosion control measures, but they are beginning construction activities.
Will they preserve that historic structure, perhaps move it to Tipton Haynes, or?
Yeah, they actually are. So part of it is the new Unicoi Spring House will be built right adjacent to the existing. So
Okay.
that was part of the whole reason was we wanted to keep the majority of this intact. Galvanized replacement annual project. This one was awarded to Mike Smith Pump Service on the March 4th commission. It includes 2 different divisions. The first division is Oak Grove area, several streets off of Oak Grove Road off of State Route 36. And then the second area is the West Market Street area, which is kind of south of West Market Street, includes Lamont Street, Whitney Street, and Veterans Way. Contractor has a notice to proceed kind of later this month. Wastewater Lift Station Phase 2. This is our next planned sewer lift station project phase out. So it includes new 8-inch and 10-inch gravity sewer line on Carroll Creek Road. So it begins on the downstream side, kind of near Terra Court, and then we'll be laying new sewer line past Boone Trail Baptist and in right at CSX Railroad. We've already awarded it to Merkle Brothers Construction, and we plan to have a notice to proceed for them in June of this year. It'll provide gravity sewer service for several customers out this direction too. West Walnut Street water and sewer replacement. I'll just speak on the water sewer portion, but it includes the replacement of 13,000 feet of water line and 10,000 feet of sewer line, and it went to advertised a bid in March and opened April the 27th. Water sewer service center replacement. So our existing water and sewer service complex is at 901 Riverview Drive. It's right next to the Brush Creek plant. Last August, the city purchased the 2250 Eddie Williams Road property, which was for a little over nearly 21 acres. Earlier on this agenda was the approval of the bid for the new project. So our plan is to start grading this summer and then have a occupancy of the new facility on end of next year, calendar year 2022. I have a rendering of what building 1 will look like here. This will be the main building for where most of the offices will be for admin, engineering, and customer service, and our treatment facility maintenance and our line maintenance and construction staff. And then this is just an overall site layout for the complex. West Hills tank repair and repainting. This is our next recoating project. So this is the tank you kind of see above the tree line at Indian Ridge Road and State of Franklin Road. It's one of our spheroid tanks. It's 500,000 gallons. It's presently out to bid right now. We'll open bids end of May, and we have a plan to have contractor begin their construction activities in August later this year. Projects to be advertised later this year. 2009 Eastward expansion project. You see on this picture there's 4 different lines, line A, B, C, and D. It's going to be broken up into 2 phases. Phase 1 will be line A and line B. That project we plan to advertise to bid later this summer. Line A includes the King Springs Road area, and then line B is Swadley Road and that corridor of Johnson City. This will include eliminating some water booster stations from our system and also enhance fire protection in the area. The B2E Sanitary Sewer Rehab Project. So this is our next sewer rehab project. This is the B2E area, which is kind of defined by south of Sinking Creek Road, kind of south of Cherokee Road area. It'll include sewer lining, manhole relining, lateral lining. So we plan to advertise this project to bid probably later this year and then start construction early next year. A wastewater lift station phase out phase 3. So this is the Suncrest area. This will provide gravity sewer service kind of at the Suncrest and the Gray Station Road corridor out in that direction. It'll also phase out 2 sewer pump stations. We have 2 E1 sewer pump stations that we'll be able to phase out. Tdot projects requiring relocation. We're also working right now with Tdot on State Route 75, right near the airport. We're gonna have to relocate a portion of our water and sewer lines for that. And then also at State Route 107, there's a portion of our water line right there out in Unicoi that we have to relocate as part of that project. Project staging for development and delivery. C sewer pump station. So our C station is located off Boring Chapel Road. So the existing station was built in the 1970s. We're right now in the design process of a new C station. It'll be a new concrete wet well, new electrical, new pumps. We plan to advertise this later this calendar year and can start construction probably early 2022. The B sewer force main project. This one also is out in the regional system of our sewer system. It's a new 30-inch sewer pressurized force main. So it's a large diameter pipe. It'll go from the B sewer lift station, which is kind of located off Cedar Point Road, and then go 10,000 feet to right, and it'll end at the D sewer lift station, which is kind of located off Honeacre Drive. Lower Boones Creek Interceptor replacement. This is almost the second phase. The first phase was the Boones Creek Interchange Exit 17. The next phase will be taking upsizing our existing 1970s gravity sewer line for this portion in the regional system from the B sewer lift station all the way back to where the fire station is, right at Boones Creek Road. Kind of future CIP delivery, I'll just mention on both the water and the sewer side, we're beginning to look into the design phase again of the Knob Creek Flyover utility replacement project, which is along Knob Creek Road, that corridor, which will include both water and sewer work. And then mentioned here at the bottom, Sinking Creek Lift Station. We just did receive approval from EDA for a new $2 million EDA grant. So we've already finished the study phase. Our next phase will become the final design phase of the project. And then AMI phasing, we have a plan to engage a consultant with the development of a master plan.
And what, AMI, for those of us?
AMI is smart metering, if that makes sense, kind of for water meters, checking for, yeah. Force account is kind of our own water and sewer staff. That's what that term is. So kind of just mentioning later this year, we plan on using our own staff to install a new sewer standby generator at our sewer lift station at Town Acres. The station itself is right across the street from the Town Acres Elementary School. And then here's just a list of several construction projects that were completed by our own water and sewer staff since September of last year. And then here's several that are now in progress or staging that are being completed by our own staff. Any questions?
Commissioner Hunter? Or Commissioner Brock, any questions?
Just a lot going on, thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you very much.
What's the dollar value, John?
85 million. That's how much we have, how many projects we have going right now.
How's staffing? I mean, are y'all fully staffed right now? Or
We
y'all
are,
having
we
any
have,
issues?
yeah, we actually increased our capacity on the inspection side, kind of to account for this. So that was, knowing that this kind of, there's a glut of projects on the way, so that was the good thing there.
Great.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Lane.
you.
What's up next, Mr. Peterson?
Well, you've already dealt with the sublease with Boyd Sports, so your next item is consideration of a purchase of a two-story building located at 300 Buffalo Street.
Who has that?
Bob's out due to a family matter he had to deal with, so I'll take this one and be glad to answer any questions and whatnot as we go through this.
Mr. Peterson, Mayor, before y'all get started, I just wanted to mention, as was mentioned in the press earlier this week, that in my free time, outside of my service here on the commission for the city, I serve in a leadership role for Beacon Financial, which currently holds the purchase option for this specific property. Our strategic plan is outlined in the press, changed due to the nature of COVID, and so with that, our desire and need for that property or space has dissolved. But although there would be neither for Beacon Financial or myself as an employee, any benefit or gain, I'm going to recuse myself from this consideration, and at your all's request or desire, I'll be happy to sit in the, or go to the podium if you need me to answer any questions, or step outside if you prefer to have conversation without me present. So whatever your all's.
I think it's fine if you want to stay where you are.
Just to clarify, what we're talking about doing is assuming a contract that Beacon has, that Beacon could simply let expire and walk away from.
Right.
So it does not even really do anything for Beacon. It just establishes a purchase price that Beacon established that, I mean, am I stating this correctly, Mr. Peterson? That ties to the appraisal value. I mean, it establishes a purchase price.
Yes, there's been an appraisal done on the property. Beacon has a lease purchase agreement in place now. We will be stepping in, and if you approve this, and making the purchase of the building.
And if we didn't do that, what would happen?
As I understand it, Beacon would either have to exercise their right to purchase, or the option expires.
So we would be able to buy it at the option price, the current option price that Beacon has on it?
Yes, we have, if you approve it, we will be purchasing the building at the price as established in the option that Beacon Financial currently has in place. So there is no monetary benefit to either Commissioner Hunter or to Beacon Financial.
Thank you. Do you want to go ahead and outline?
Yes, sir. This is, the building in question is the old Clinchfield Railroad Depot. It's the building where Tupelo Honey has occupied the one-story portion of the building. On the easterly end is the two-story section of that building. What is in question here this evening is just the two-story section of that building. This purchase does not contemplate acquiring the one-story portion of that building. The two-story building is 5,854 square feet, an equal amount of area on both the ground floor and the upper floor. The purpose for the purchase is to meet some of the goals of your strategic plan, which was to establish a visitor center for the Conventions and Visitors Bureau. So the plan as it is in place now would be to house the Conventions and Visitors Bureau, the Johnson City Development Authority, as well as members of our staff and the Communications and Marketing Department. This gives us a chance to, excuse me, this gives us the opportunity to ensure a cohesive front for visitors and citizens in our community, to ensure that we get our brand presented by all three entities in a coordinated and a comprehensive manner. And, similar to, I guess, the phrase that we've used in several different instances, this can be a one-stop shop for a number of different purposes. It's an extremely prominent location in the historic area of downtown. Again, it's an opportunity to preserve an historically significant building. And it plays on the heritage of Johnson City and Johnson's Depot of, the railroad theme. And so we feel like it's going to be a good investment by the city. The proposal before you this evening would be for the city to purchase the building, and the CVB and the JCDA would each pay us $12,000 annually for rent in that building. The preliminary numbers that Mr. Wilson ran, it looks like the debt service on that, the purchase of that, if we borrowed the money, would be just shy of $50,000 a year. So as you can see, we're acquiring about half of the annual cost of the building in rent monies. The proposal before you this evening would be to use part of your cash fund balance for this purchase, and to not incur the interest expense associated with the borrowing. That's the highlights of the proposal in front of you, and I'd be glad to answer any detailed questions that you may have.
Are there questions? Owners of the building formerly Tupelo Honey, this Johnson's Depot LLC, are they friendly to the city people since they're sharing fire systems and other things that the one building has going to it?
Yes, sir. The Johnson's Depot LLC have been involved in a review of the building in terms of how we're going to address what is now currently shared ingress, egress, fire suppression systems, fire alarm systems, all those types of things. We've jointly developed a plan on how to condo that building, if you will. Codes enforcement, and we've had the architect go through the building. Randy Trivett's gone through the building. There will be some minor modifications to be done on the ground floor in order to facilitate offices and the visitor center. We'll plan to do all that with in-house crews under Randy's supervision. And the appraisal and the review by the architect said it's a very sound building in very good shape, and that the asking price is a reasonable price to pay for the structure.
Very nice thing, pleasant thing to not have an increase in the price because we're going to buy it. So I'm
Yes,
happy
sir.
with that.
Are there other questions for Mr. Peterson?
I have a question. What happens if we don't purchase this property? What are the plans to position the JCDA Visitors Bureau? I mean, is there a plan B as to where they would locate?
If we do not purchase this building,
Yes, sir.
Plan B, as far as I know, would be the JCDA would stay where they are, and the Conventions and Visitors Bureau would look for another location.
The board chair for the CVB is here, and if he would like to come forward, he can, but if he would prefer not to. Andy, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Is there anything you'd like to say about particularly the CVB's plans as it relates to co-locating with the city and JCDA in that facility in the event we bought it?
Thank you, Mayor. I think that the potential for the visitor center in that location is very profound. If you look at the location, it makes so much sense when you look at what kind of development is happening around it, both on Walnut Street. It's close to ETSU, close to downtown. This city is in need of a world-class visitor center, and this puts us right in that spot where we can achieve that and welcome groups, individual visitors, families, people on business travel, you name it. It will be the front porch to Johnson City, and it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for the CVB.
Are there questions for Mr. Marquardt? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, Pete.
Further comment or questions for staff? Yes.
Just a comment on my part, we've talked for many years about a visitor center for Johnson City. We've never really had one. The versatility of it and what it can do for Johnson City over the long run will be outstanding. And as Andy said, location, location, location. I mean, this is a historic building. It ties into why Johnson City is here to begin with the train theme. It has parking around it, access for when visitors come in and visit there, then they can walk right into town and visit some of our other properties and hopefully restaurants and parks. So I couldn't be happier about it. I absolutely will support it, and we'll do that in the form of a motion for
We
us
have
to
a
purchase
motion.
it.
I guess I would just add to what Commissioner Brock said. We met, COVID has the time frame a little blurred. I guess it was almost 2 years ago with a consultant who came as a part of a strategic planning process with CVB. And as we met with them, several things he kept saying is you need a visitor center. It needs to make a good first impression. It needs to be on the first floor. It needs to be easily located. And optimally, it's somewhere within walking distance to at least some of the initial things you might hope a visitor visits when they're in your community. And so contrast that to what we have in the chamber building, which takes a little bit of doing to find if you don't know how to get there. And you put this down right off State of Franklin and all the things that have already been said, this facility presents exactly all of those opportunities. And for that, I'd be happy to second it, although that's a little out of order for the chair, but unless someone else wants to join me in seconding it.
I would second it also.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. We have a motion and a second. Is there anything further or objection to calling the roll? Ma'am?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Abstain.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
The next order of business is consideration and selection of an executive search firm for the city manager recruitment process. Mr. Willis, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. So for the benefit of the public, I'll give a quick recap of the activities that have happened that brings us to this agenda item tonight. After Mr. Peterson's retirement announcement on or about March 18th, about a week later, we issued an RFP requesting proposals from experienced public sector search firms. The April 8th deadline led us to have 10 respondents to that RFP. For the next 6 to 7 days, I reviewed all 10 of those proposals and brought forward to this commission 4 recommended firms for interviews. Those interviews were held last Thursday here at City Hall, a public meeting. And afterward, we recorded the interviews. We did those via Zoom. I forwarded those to the commission so they'd have a chance to review those before this evening. And as a result of that, I'm adding this item to the agenda tonight, or placed it on the agenda for the selection of that firm. Once the commission makes that decision, then tomorrow morning I will notify the selected firm and we'll begin contract negotiations with that firm.
Are there
I'll be happy to
questions
answer
for
any
Mr.
questions.
Willis? Anyone?
I have a question, Mayor.
Commissioner Murphy?
Just out of concern, concerns due to some citizens, I think it will be important if we explain why we went with a hiring firm to get a city manager versus what they've done years ago. I think when we hired Mr. Peterson, I wasn't here. I think I was still in kindergarten.
Yeah, that's when we hit that pump
Your
out
words
Supreme
hurt,
Court.
Aaron.
I'm kidding, I'm joking.
You and John.
I was gonna say, he was potty trained, I was almost potty trained.
But all jokes aside, can we talk about why we chose to go with a hiring firm versus us being a search? Can we talk about that for the sake of the community so they understand?
I'm happy to take first off, this is not the first time a search firm has been used in the history of the city. One of the inherent challenges you have is the candidate you want to hire is happily employed somewhere else. And so the candidate we want is not sending resumes every time they see a listing. The candidate we want is happily going to work with their eye on the objectives of their current employer. And the inherent dilemma is twofold. One is, without a little bit of cajoling and working, they're not going to apply. And twofold, the minute the full commission gets involved in any of those conversations, however preliminary they may be, just like, have you ever heard of Johnson City? The minute we start having those conversations, that becomes a matter of a public records request. And you're going to spook people from even talking to you, because the last thing the happily employed person in Xenia, Ohio, or Charleston, South Carolina wants is their hometown newspaper picking up that they're a candidate for city manager in Johnson City. We need the best, broadest search. Our candidate may be in-house, but a professional external search helps us be assured that we didn't hire the easy hire, we hired the best hire. And this is a very specialized kind of position. Think about what you're talking about. You're talking about a CEO of 1,000-employee organization with 21 departments, some of them amongst the most regulated ventures humanity has ever created, water and sewer and first response. We need somebody who brings a wide range of talents and skills to bear, and I think the way you're going to catch that candidate is the biggest, most strategically directed net. And to me, that's what an executive search firm does. Do you want to add anything to that?
I certainly concur with the mayor's commentary. And to his point, we're a 1,000-plus employee organization. We have 3 employees essentially in human resources. I could not dedicate my time fully to this one search. I would be very remiss if I attempted to do that, because we have probably 40 openings right now across the city. So you need someone focused on this effort every single day in order to bring the best candidates before this commission. And as I said to Mr. Floyd last week, in my opinion, of course, I'm biased being in HR, but I think this is the single most important decision a commission will make, is this selection.
May I say something? Being a city manager, the couple of things that Mayor Wise mentioned are going to be mission critical. You're going to have very qualified candidates that are very desirable. They are not going to want their employer to know that they're potentially looking at another job. You will kill the field if you don't use a search firm that can go out and solicit and use the networking that they have established through their business to reach out and make contact with people. There are probably a lot of people that you all would really like to interview that may not even be looking for a job and never even heard of Johnson City, Tennessee, unless somebody knows them and reaches out to them through some sort of networking that they've built up. You're not going to reach nearly the field of qualified candidates without using an outside search firm. And I know of at least once, maybe twice in the last 21 years that an outside search firm was used to hire the city manager. So it's not unprecedented, and I can assure you, we will all be much better served if you use an outside search firm in order to find candidates from which to choose.
Now, the second part of that, just to outline where do we go from here. So in the event we selected a search firm, Mr. Willis is going to communicate that within the next couple of days. And then they're going to begin the process of those negotiations and then basically mapping out a strategy for beginning that search. At some point, they are going to identify candidates that rise to the occasion of being finalists. And when that happens, then that very clearly becomes a public process, because that's when we begin to meet those candidates and the community gets to meet those candidates and the existing leadership within City Hall gets to meet those candidates. And so this is just one part of what is going to be a multi-stage undertaking that very much is going to involve a public process too. This just gets that process started.
Yes, sir.
Ready to talk about some of these firms?
Yes. Would you like to talk about that, Vice Mayor?
I spent a lot of time because I think this is probably the most important decision this commission, any commission, would make for the city of Johnson City, to serve the people. A good city commissioner, a good city manager makes the difference. And I think Pete's that example that he's been a great city manager. So, and they don't stay nearly as long as Pete, most of them. What, 5 years? Something like that?
5 to 7 years.
5 to 7 years for them. So after looking back, listening to the people talk and the different ones, I looked at SGR, which is Strategic Government Resources, and they've placed over 150 city managers over the last 9 years, and they look at 47 states they have been involved with. And one of the things that was most important to me is they look for servant leaders that are going to be active in the community and not just manage the 1,000 people that work for them, but they actually want that person to be involved in the community and be out in the community. And that was really impressive to me. So my vote would be for Strategic Government Resources to be the firm that we use.
You want to make that as a motion?
I would make that as a motion.
So we have a motion to engage in negotiations with SGR.
I will second that, and I agree, Dr. Fowler, the culture of that company, I think, matches us very, very well, and look forward to working with them. Very professional.
Mr. Willis, how many firms applied in total?
10. Yes, sir.
And we interviewed, the commission interviewed 4, and in my opinion, I think many of y'all agree as well, SGR, Strategic Government Resources, was heads and shoulders above the others. They've also done work or hired placements in Tennessee, which some of the others have not. So I think they understand our region and what we'd be looking for, as Commissioner Fowler mentioned with the servant leadership.
And just as a point of information, we did not initially look at the supplied pricing because we wanted to evaluate the qualifications before we let that factor into our decision-making. The eventual, once we saw those prices, it is a very, very nominal difference between all of them, and SGR is not the highest. It's really kind of in the middle, and they're all within really the same general range. So if there's no objection, would we be ready to call the roll? Okay, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes, and I would comment that this is the most important hire that we probably would make in our term here. And so to get somebody on board that's more qualified, does it for the living, I think we should all feel good about that. So I say yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Willis.
I'll contact SGR first thing in the morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve, so you all selected SGR. Did that also include authorizing Steve to negotiate a contract and the mayor to execute the contract, or is the contract supposed to come back?
In the recommended action, the authorization for the mayor to sign was included.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Thank you.
Is that what you meant?
That's what I said.
Is that what you meant? That's what we meant.
Okay, great. We're all on the same
Just want
page.
to make sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to the end of all the action items on your agenda and takes you to public input, Mayor.
All right, we will momentarily open the floor for public input. We do that by inviting you to the podium where you'll be asked to give your name and address and the topic on which you are addressing the commission. You will be allowed 3 minutes so that we can keep that moving. And would somebody be willing to be a timekeeper? Commissioner Brock will be the timekeeper. And then just kind of come in an orderly fashion. By virtue of it being public comment, the commission does not respond customarily. This is a time for us to hear from citizens, and so when public comment closes, there won't be any kind of direct or official response. So with that, public input is open, and whoever wishes to come first, please do. Oh, and now it's open. There we go. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for having us. My name's Thomas Madison. I am the local vice president of the local NAACP. I'm here this evening to speak candidly and honestly about Johnson City, Tennessee. As a community, as a nation, we must acknowledge that we still, after all these years, have a race problem in this nation and sadly in our city. Excuse me. We must acknowledge that we have a long way to go to achieve racial equity and equality. I worked for the city, Johnson City Water Department about 30 years ago. Sadly, when I look at the same department, there are very few changes in the faces of this department. I would like to challenge you, our leaders, to look closely at the supervisory positions within the different departments of Johnson City and observe the lack of color in supervisory positions. I would challenge our leaders to observe the lack of color throughout all the systems in Johnson City. Then ask yourselves, why? In the year 2021, our city declares to moving forward and embracing equity, equality, and diversity. With this declaration, our city systems and departments are a sad representation of diversity, equity, and equality. It is most disappointing that our mayor dismisses the idea of opportunities to hire heterosexual white males. We need a committee that says, are we being diverse? Are we equitable? Are we equal? The request for an equity committee is to assure that all people, without regard to race, gender, and or religion, will be afforded the same tools, opportunities to apply for and receive a job. Mr. Mayor, equity is not a code word. It is the desire for fair and impartial treatment and opportunities for everyone. Dr. King said we should judge people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. Black, brown people have been and continue to be a race of people who must fight for basic human rights. We're a forgiving and resilient race of people. We have never wanted, or do we expect, anything other than equity and equality. We want the same opportunities, that's all, the same playing field given to people that don't look like me. We are not requesting anything other than basic human rights. In order to make progress, we must intentionally make adjustments. We all must listen. We come to you this evening asking that you, as our city leaders, take a moment to try and understand that there is a problem. Our point is that we want our great city to be that shining city on the hill. That is an example showing that you're willing to listen. We just ask that you realize that systematic racism, let me say that one more time, systematic racism still is a problem within our nation and in our city. We ask you take one moment and consider what Equity and Equality Board may or may not find. Maybe they won't find a problem. Maybe they will. But if they find a problem, then it can be fixed. Isn't it the right time
You're
to
at
do the
3
right
minutes.
thing? To do the right thing that benefits everyone in our wonderful city. I thank you. May you all be blessed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And again, just your name and address.
I'm Ed Wolf. I live in Jonesboro, Tennessee. I'm the host of Black-White Dialogue and the treasurer of the NAACP. There's no doubt that one will always hear the positive features of living in Johnson City. Being in the midst of the Appalachians, having a low crime rate with reasonable housing and cost of living. But do you hear from those who live in the margins, especially people of color? Do you hear about the negative treatment of attempting to find employment? Do you hear about the fear of being alone in certain parts of the city? Do you hear about the professional individuals who leave this community because they feel like they're invisible or rudely treated? Your answer might be probably not, because many people of European descent live in a bubble that excludes people who do not look like them. Those are some of the reasons we need an equity advisory board. But it's not only for the fair treatment of all people, it's a wise decision to have an equity board economic tourism point of view. Just ask Asheville or Chattanooga, whom we attempt to emulate. I have found that the Johnson City Commission's strategy now is to be mute on the topic of an equity advisory board, that it will disappear, that topic, but it won't. Furthermore, the conservative Christian community wants it to go away because of its attitude toward the LGBTQ community, but it's not going to go away. The Republican Executive Committee said that having an equity board gives the minority an inappropriate voice. While that is nonsense, it demonstrates the fear of change. Johnson City is getting ready to replace its administrator, with the assistant not far behind. In reading the local media in regard to listing the questions being asked the search firms, I did not see included an inquiry about being pro-diversity, equity, and inclusion. Furthermore, it seems a high priority is to promote from within. Out of plus 40 supervisors, only 3 are black. We are not a healthy city. Just ask those cited above or who used to live in Roan Hill. We are systemically racist. That needs to change.
Public input remains open. Is there anyone else wishing to address the commission? If not, public, oh, I'm sorry, are you coming now? Okay.
Sorry, I didn't want to go before anyone. I didn't want to take a chance. My name is Jeff Clark. I live at 2326 West Brook Lane. Thanks for starting to repave that road. Now that I moved there, it's very nice. I wanted to talk a bit about.
You can take your mask off. That
I
might
know
help
I
it.
can.
Okay, that would help us hear you.
I'm right next to some.
Okay.
People that aren't.
All right.
So, I wanted to talk a bit about bias. You've already heard from people talking about race, but maybe try and take a look at it from something else. We have in this country a minority that we already include in a lot of things. That's left-handed people. I have a lot of left-handed people in my family, my grandmother, my aunt. We provide things like left-handed scissors. Did you know that there is a reason why scissors are left-handed? It's so you can see while you're cutting. A left-handed person using right-handed scissors cannot see where they are cutting. That is not a problem that we think about as right-handed people, right? But it's a problem for a left-handed person who's trying to make an accurate cut. Sorry. So just that bias alone, that is an issue. And that is one that we as a society has decided we shouldn't be punishing people for how they naturally are. An equity board would allow you, as the leaders of the city, to make better decisions and to figure out the solutions to the problems that you don't see because you are biased that way. You're right-handed, as it were. So for the benefit of all those who are, facing issues, like this, I do ask that you reconsider an equity board. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to close public input unless there's someone else wishing to speak. Okay, public input is closed. Mr. Peterson, do you have anything else for us?
No, sir, that brings you to the end of your agenda.
All right. Any of the commissioners serving on committees that have a relevant report to share since our last meeting?
They stole my thunder with the CVB, so they've
Okay.
already told us what they were planning to do.
All
so.
right. Commissioner Murphy, do you have anything?
Just found out about a dog park the other day, so.
So did I.
Excited about new stuff.
Dog parks are good.
Commissioner Brock?
Well, Mr. Dyke stole my thunder too, so I
Okay.
think y'all got a good briefing.
Commissioner Hunter?
library's open and seems to be going well, and community seems happy to have access to it once again.
Thank you. And I would remind folks that we have moved to doing appointments to city-appointed boards and commissions twice a year to do them in a more deliberate and orderly fashion. And so the next round of those appointments, I think, will start on our agenda in July? June, okay. And so they're coming up, and so those with an interest in serving their community, this is a great opportunity to do that. Those advisory boards, commissions, et cetera, basically touch every facet of municipal government in one way or another. And so that is on the near-term horizon, and if there's nothing further, this meeting will stand adjourned.